I promised that if I got to see the unit rules for the new Totenkorps stuff, then I would share them with you all. And here we are. This isn't sneaky or breaking rules. Warlord Games knows I'm doing this. I have points values for these units, but they are subject to change from when I got a version of them before they come out proper at the end of March, as updated PDFs for the Axis and Americans, the focal factions of the Festung Europa book. So I've been asked not to share the points values as they could be wrong or different to release. Okay, that's the transparency. Now let's talk a bit more about what rules are coming. And these should be free, by the way. Not just, this is a free to view YouTube video, so drop a like or get a free subscription to my channel. The unit rules and specialist platoons should be free to download from the Warlord Games website. First thing is important, new specialist platoons. We like that. Bolt Action has the optional sub-faction element of rules like for King and Country that lets you have the Chindits or Guards regiments for the British, and the Japanese have veteran jungle fighters or home defense options. Konflict 47 doesn't do that, but what they're doing instead is having specialist platoons that replace the basic assault platoon. If you want an Axis zombie army, use the Totenrotte Platoon. This replaces the assault platoon as the mandatory platoon you have to take, and is how you have a zombie army. So it can be taken in lieu of an assault platoon as the mandatory platoon. I am then assuming that rules like you can only have other platoons, like the Armored Walker Platoon, would then be allowed to still be taken as if this Totenrotte Platoon was the assault platoon. Otherwise it would be near meaningless. You would also have to take an assault platoon to unlock other platoons. The only way it would make sense is if this one platoon was your whole army, but it is rarely viable to make a whole force from one platoon. So let's go under the assumption that this Totenrotte Platoon counts as an assault platoon for all other rules, like the page 166. Your force can only include as many multiples of any platoon type as it includes multiples of assault platoons. In short, start with a Totenrotte Platoon, then add any other kind of platoon as normal. And I'm also assuming that this Totenrotte Platoon can be taken as a regular platoon. So you could have an assault platoon, and also have a Totenrotte Platoon. Either way around is totally fine. All I have to go off at the moment is the line, a Totenrotte Platoon may be taken in lieu of an assault platoon as the mandatory requirement for an Axis force. That's it. Hopefully the actual release of the rules explains that a bit more. Now, it's a platoon, so it's a platoon structure. There are mandatory units that you have to take. There's a Totenrotte Platoon Commander. They are not a zombie lieutenant, but they're the guy at the front of this box with his two attendants. The commander of the zombie platoon. The alternative is to take the Ernitman, the Harvestman, von Zogling, as the commander of the platoon. Normally you're not allowed to have a named character leading a platoon as the platoon commander. Like Slammer Samuels takes the place of a company commander. Taking von Zogling as the platoon commander will let you take Hauptmann Heinrich Gross in the same force in the company commander slot. So we have our platoon commander, either this guy or this guy. Then you need to have two Totenkorps squads. Naturally, it's the Totenkorps Platoon. The unit size, as far as I know, remains as 6 to 12. I haven't seen any updated Totenkorps unit rules. The new sprue has 15 zombies, so that would give you a squad of 9, a squad of 6 as an example. Or have 2 squads of 6, because there are ways to add zombies to units potentially beyond starting strength. And you need to have 2 Nachtzehrer, the hermit crabby things. It translates into English as afterlife eater, like a weird vampire. Those are your mandatory units. Platoon commander, 2 squads of zombies, and 2 hermit crab walkers. And all of them, except von Zogling, come in the Totenrotte starter army. How very convenient. All according to the plans of the Green Vault, and that's why I keep showing off this image. The Totenrotte starter army is the Totenrotte Platoon. Then we have optional units. So you can have up to another 3 Totenkorps squads. You can have up to 1 Totenrotte medic. And again, this is not a zombified medic. They're a medic that heals the zombies. I will cover the unit rules a little later in this video. Up to 2 shock trooper squads. I can't see any unit rules for them. I haven't been given any information about this as a unit. I can't see them in the Axis PDF. But the models have been around for a while. I think people use these models as Volksgrenadiers with assault rifles. I don't play the Axis. Someone who plays Axis may have to explain this one to me. But it's these models. These are listed as the shock troopers on the website. Then up to another 3 of the Hermit Crab Walkers. You can have a transport like an Opal Blitz per infantry unit in the platoon. And you can also take von Zogling if he's not taken as the platoon commander. The only way to include von Zogling in an army is in a Totenrotte Platoon, as far as I know, either as an optional extra or as the platoon commander. There doesn't seem to be any option to take him as the company commander slot. And as a specialist platoon, you get additional special rules to make it worth taking this over the assault platoon and armored walker platoon. 2 rules. Number 1, a Totenkorps unit in a Totenrotte Platoon within 6 inches of a Totenrotte commander, a specialist medic, or Nachtzehrer in the same platoon loses the limited intelligence special rule. That is the rule that stops them from capturing, controlling, picking up, moving, running away with, and reading intelligence. So if you take this platoon and you have the officers that are near to these squads, they can hold objectives. The second rule, if a Totenkorps unit in a Totenrotte platoon is within 6 inches of a Totenrotte commander, a Totenrotte medic, or the Nachtzehrer from the same platoon, change their exhausted rift dice penalty to none. Because currently their exhausted penalty is that they cannot be given run orders. If you cannot be given a run order, you are not able to charge enemies. And if the zombies are not able to charge the enemies, they're just standing around doing nothing. This will allow them to regenerate models and still be able to charge. So the zombies become a lot more deadly, and you can actually play missions with the zombies rather than them just wandering around not being able to do anything that scores victory points other than kill enemies. Do please take note that these special rules only apply to the units that are in the platoon structure. So if you had a Totenkorps unit not in the platoon, even if it was near a Totenrotte platoon commander, it would still suffer from the exhausted penalty on its rift dice because it's only the Totenkorps units in the Totenrotte platoon that can change their exhausted penalty to no penalty. So that's how this platoon works. So there's a hypothetical platoon for a British Commonwealth in the next expansion. I'm making this up, I'm saying it's hypothetical. I haven't been told by Warlord Games this is coming. So in the Invasion America book, we could have automatons fighting in the snow to defend Canada as an automaton platoon. So as an idea, you have to have 2 Mark 1 units, 2 Mark 2 units, and a maybe new automaton commander, or B for Bertie, a character that looks like it's getting a model very soon. That looks like a new and upcoming model to me. That is a page from the Festung Europa book. If you want to buy that book, or anything else from Warlord Games, please use the link in the description. It helps me out to be seen as good for Warlord Games, so they send me stuff. But that automaton platoon is hypothetical, made up by me just now. But it shows how this structure could work. About 500 points of troops, and then add-ons of more, like some vehicles, but they have to have computational systems, and the automated mobile gun platforms, and then a couple of special rules that get rid of their weaknesses. Like if the Mark 1s were near any of the other units in the platoon, you ignore the -1 to hit modifier when shooting. This isn't our only new platoon. There is a Firefly Platoon for the United States. And again, a Firefly Platoon can be taken in lieu of an assault platoon as the mandatory requirement in a United States force. The mandatory units for this platoon very much match the starter army for the United States. You have to have a Firefly Platoon commander, or you can have Roberta Wells leading this platoon. Then you have to have 2 Firefly squads and 1 linebacker jump walker. The other optional units are all Firefly related. A Firefly Artillery Forward Observer, or Firefly Air Force Forward Observer, a Firefly Medic, up to 2 Firefly squads, up to 2 Firefly Flamethrower teams, up to 3 Jackal Light Jump Walkers, up to 3 Mud Skipper Jump Walkers, and up to 2 more Linebacker Jump Walkers. And again, the option of adding Roberta Wells if she isn't already the platoon commander. Your special rules for this platoon? Once per game you can re-roll a result of a Regroup in Hell for one of the units in this platoon. Regroup in Hell is the active Rift ability that lets you move 2d6 after shooting or close combat, after you've done an advance or a run order. So if you fired and tried to jump away to safety and you didn't make it because you rolled like a 3 on the dice, you could re-roll it to at least keep your unit alive. This is the difference between losing a Firefly unit that's out in the open and having them hidden behind one of the buildings of the French village. And the second rule, at the start of the game, before deployment, you can nominate a unit from the platoon. When it arrives from reserves, using either the flight or the jump special rules, flight being for the Fireflies, jump being for the walkers, enemy units that have yet to receive an order within 12 cannot react by opening fire. And if you did pick a Firefly unit that has the regroup in hell rule, you can use it to move after arriving from reserves. So that's useful to have, say, a minimum sized platoon of Fireflies, but one unit is extra big, and they will arrive from reserves, probably not get shot, assuming there's no ambush orders nearby, and then be able to move to safety after arriving. Now in that list of Firefly units, I mentioned some things that don't currently exist. So let's have a look at the new units. They're all kind of fancy. Starting with the Axis units. Von Zogling. Von Zogling isn't a guy standing alone, or raised up slightly above everyone else on his special chair. He can have zombies in his unit, up to 6 of them. Having zombies slows him down, he no longer moves 6, he moves 4, but it will make the unit much harder to kill, and he has the same rule as the Totenkorps to return zombies to the squad, so it's worth adding 6 zombies to his entourage. He can also stab people and kill them, and as long as their armor is 6+ or worse, and they're not automatons, that makes a new zombie, and this can take the unit above starting size. It's only for the Von Zogling model, and only in close combat. I think he rolls 3 dice in combat, 2 from Deadly 2, and another 1 from Tough Fighters. This is unlikely to cause waves of zombies emanating from him, but it has the potential to spiral. It should be noted that the person is only made into a zombie on a 4+. So they might kill someone, but roll a 1 and you don't get a new zombie. He himself is a specialist medic, like the Totenrotte medic, so Totenkorps units within 6 can be saved from a ranged attack if you roll a 6. That damage is ignored and does not inflict a casualty. And always do the Totenkorps units within 6 inches lose the limited intelligence special rule. So it doesn't matter if the zombies are from the Totenrotte Platoon or not, they can capture objectives. He comes with 2 Rift Mastery dice and 1 luck. The Totenrotte Platoon commander is essentially a platoon commander, but with specialist advanced armor. They have to be veteran quality, defense value 5+, but enemies with no penetration or using high explosives to hurt him are -1 to the damage roll. Effectively, Pen 1 will wound on a 4+, Pen 0 will wound on a 6+. They can be a good alternative to basic platoon commanders in any platoon, otherwise they're a basic platoon commander. The Totenrotte medic is more expensive than a regular medic, and they are in the same advanced body armor. They heal the zombies, you roll a 6 and they don't die. They don't have the basic medic rule, so they only heal the zombies. And these are always veteran quality. The Nachtzehrer is a light walker with 8+ armor, and when zombies within 12 use their Rift ability, then they get to add 1 to the roll. So rather than bringing back D6 zombies, it's D6 + 1 zombies. They have the same medical implant rule as Von Zogling. Each time they kill a person, roll a dice, on a 4+, you get a new zombie, but that's added to a zombie unit within 12 inches. And that can take the unit above its starting number of models. You can spend their Rift dice when a friend or foe within 6 inches is destroyed, and a new unit of zombies disembarks from the walker. It's D6 zombies, and they start with an exhausted Rift dice so they can't charge, except we know that in the Totenrotte Platoon, if you're within 6 inches of the walker, then your exhausted penalty is nothing, and you can still run and therefore still charge. But if you're using these walkers outside of a Totenrotte Platoon, like they're part of an armoured walker platoon, then this disembarking new unit would not be able to charge. It's once per game turn at most, so don't expect to turn the world to zombies. And lastly is the Inferno Spinner, which translates into English as hermit crabs with flamethrowers attached to their frickin' legs of death, or fire spider, that too. These are not part of the Totenrotte Platoon, you can't have them in the Totenrotte Platoon, so you need to add an armoured platoon or armoured walker platoon. If you wanted to build the models from the Totenrotte army set as Inferno Spiders, then you would use the assault platoon for the lieutenant and zombies, and then add an armoured walker platoon. That's not ideal for zombie fans, but zombie fans should build the Nachtzehrer. And people who want to expand their Axis army with new units could have one of each or 2 Inferno Spiders. You've got 2 vehicle flamethrowers, and because of that you can't make close combat attacks with the arms. The new United States units are pretty standard to what you would expect. First there's Roberta Wells, the Firefly hero. She has 1 Guts, 1 Rift Mastery, and 2 Luck. Whenever she makes an order test, she takes it at her unmodified morale value, which is 10. That's her resourceful rule. She has the Regroup in Hell rule. She also has Rift Research. She can change the facing of an enemy unit's Rift dice to any side, so you can deliberately exhaust an enemy Rift unit if they're within 12 inches of her and within line of sight. You exhaust one of your own Rift dice to do this, but that's worth it. If you're able to say, hey, those zombies cannot charge me now, great. And there's a separate rule, Rift Science, so you can do the opposite to a friendly unit. A friendly unit within 12 inches that has an active Rift dice becomes Surging, or if it's exhausted, their Rift dice becomes active. Again, you exhaust one of her 3 Rift dice after she's completed her order. That is an impressive force multiplier and a debuff giver. And then we expand the Fireflies so that they can do lots of different things. There's the Firefly Artillery Forward Observer. This is a Forward Observer with a Firefly Gravatic Jump Pack. Same for the Firefly Air Force Forward Observer, but they have modern communications so you can re-roll the dice when they roll on the airstrike table. At the moment, I see no reason why these can't be taken in any other platoon, so instead of having a regular Air Force Observer, have a Firefly Air Force Observer if you have the points, because they're better. All the Fireflies have this only human rule, despite being Rift units, and that allows a medic to heal them. There is now a Firefly medic that can fly alongside them and heal them up. Keep them alive when they get shot at. They tend to die relatively quickly because they're in the open when they land. There's a Firefly Flamethrower team, so rather than putting a flamethrower in a squad of Fireflies, have a team of 2. One has the flamethrower, one has a pistol. Jump forward, flame the enemy, and they have the controlled burn rule. You can exhaust your Rift dice to re-roll the d6 to see how many hits are scored against the enemy target. If you do that, your unit suffers d3 pins instead of the usual 1, but you don't need to take a test to see if the flamethrower runs out of fuel. It's considered to have automatically passed, and you can regroup in Hell. You jump forward, you burn the enemy, you fly away. That is all of the new units. All of this is subject to change before the PDFs are updated, which I'm expecting to happen around the end of the month. Maybe von Zogling can be taken in the company commander slot. Maybe some of these units can only be taken in a Firefly Platoon. I think that's unlikely. I think they'll be available to any US army. Or maybe my assumption is wrong about the platoon structure. Maybe if you want a Totenrotte Platoon and an armoured platoon, you have to also have an assault platoon. But if you want just the big Totenrotte Platoon, that's perfectly fine. You don't need an assault platoon to do that. That could be the intention. I'm guessing. And I'm hoping Warlord Games will provide more clarity on that when it comes out. Because I wasn't given the full PDF as they're going to be released. I was given a lot of words on a screen. So I'll be seeing them for real at the same time as you are. At this point, I'm also expecting a few minor rules fixes to the PDFs. They haven't been updated since December. That's fine, I don't need my rules updating every few weeks. But I expect a rules fix will come along at the same time, because they're updating the PDFs for what's going to be available, and there'll be minor things like the platoon commander in Galahad armor in the Commonwealth PDF is going to be fixed to say it's a platoon commander, not a company commander. The company commander in Galahad armor is the company commander. So with your new platoon structures, get your Firefly army on the table, get your zombie army on the table, and use them with really good specialized scenario missions in the Festung Europa rulebook. Campaign book, supplement book, it's a good book. This video tells you what's inside it. May your Rift dice be ever surging.